Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Refugee Matters, a series where we unpack topics that impact folks of the refugee experience and those who have experienced forced displacement in the United States. Today, we will be discussing the end for the use of Title 42 and what to expect after May 11. We are joined by our guest speakers from Welcome with Dignity, Bilal Askariar and Paula Areza, as well as Refugee Congress delegate from New York, Luis Meja, who will be sharing their experiences with asylum. My name is Naveed, and I am the Newcomers Inclusion Organizer for the National Partnership for New Americans. This episode and the topic on this episode is important to me because I'm someone who is currently in the process of asylum in the United States too. I thank all of our speakers for attending this discussion. All of us here today have fought long and hard for the end of the use of the Title 42. You all know that Title 42 is an unjust, unlawful policy that has shut out people seeking refugee and asylum, and also people that are stateless in the United States. Under the pretext of public health, Title 42 has been used by Trump administration and Biden administration to restrict access to asylum seekers and other humanitarian protections. The Biden administration continued use of Title 42 has been a public health, border management, and human rights disaster. There have been nearly 14,000 documented reports of violence attack against people seeking asylum and other migrants who were blocked or expelled under the Title 42. While change is coming, we must still keep up the fight. On May 11th, which is today, the Biden administration will stop using the Title 42 to expel migrants seeking to enter the United States. While this is a significant victory for all of us who have been fighting for the rights of refugees and people seeking asylum, what comes next is no improvement. Today, we are joined by Luis Meja, Refugee Congress delegate from New York and former refugee from Guatemala, who will be sharing his experiences with seeking refugee in the US and working with people seeking asylum. We are joined here with Bilal and Paula from Welcome with Dignity, who will be providing updates on Title 42 and the Welcome Wednesdays initiative. Let's get started and begin with our first guest. My question from Bilal Askariar is, Bilal John, can you provide some insight as to why Title 42 is ending?
Thank you so much, Nawi John. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm here with my colleague Paula Arisa. We're actually in Reynosa, Mexico, a town along the border of the United States-Mexico border, and we're here just hours before Title 42 ends. Basically, what happened was that when President Biden announced that the pandemic COVID emergency was over, that meant that the justification for Title 42 was also over. And instead of looking at this as an opportunity to once again restore our asylum system, the administration has proposed a new rule that they are going to enforce, which will turn away people seeking asylum if they don't use the CBP1 app, or if they don't follow a lot of very complex steps to in this new system. So we're actually here. We've been spending all day visiting different shelters and talking to people who have a lot of questions.
There's a lot of misinformation out there.
Yeah, talk to us about that, Paula.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion amongst the asylum seekers that we've spoken to here on the ground. There was a misunderstanding that once Title 42 ended, they would be able to just go to the port of entry and seek asylum, as is their right. But actually, beyond just the ban that Bilal just mentioned, we're going to see a return to Title 8, which means that under Title 42, if you entered, they would just expel you immediately, and it wouldn't be like a punishable thing, right? Like they just expelled you and that was it, and then people might try to come back again. But with Title 8, If you are captured and expelled, then there's a 5-year re-entry ban. So that's we've been clarifying that with people on the ground. Haitian Bridge Alliance and some other partners are here debunking some of the myths and making sure that people are armed with the information that they need to properly seek asylum and not be punished under these new rules by Biden.
Okay, okay. And Bilal, can you also tell us like what people should expect after the end of Title 42?
Right. Thank you so much. I think we're going to see what happens tonight at midnight, right? When Title 42 ends and this new regime goes into place. Like Paula said, it's going to be a return to Title 8, which means people will be able, it's kind of a meaner way to process people because, like Paula said, if you try to enter the United States and seek asylum and they use Title 8 on you, that means you can't come back for 5 years. Whereas that limit wasn't there with Title 42. Additionally, yes, there is the reality that we're seeing here at the different shelters that for 3 years now, Title 42 has turned away people seeking asylum. So now there's a backlog of people at the border who wanted to seek asylum but were never given that chance. And I think what Paula was saying about the misinformation, what she was saying is, a lot of people think now that Title 42 is over that the border is open and they can go. And so we may see increased numbers of people trying to cross the bridge into the United States or trying to come seek asylum at the United States. But they're not going to be allowed in unless they have an appointment on the CBP One app. The problem with the CBP One app is there's only 1,000 appointments
per day
for the entire United States-Mexico border.
And I want to add to that, it's not just the CPV one appointment that is a requirement. It's also if you traveled to the border through a third country, which means if you are not Mexican and you are in Mexico trying to seek asylum, you will be denied entry unless you sought asylum in a country on your way here and were denied, which, a lot of the countries throughout Central America don't have functioning asylum systems and are actually, just as dangerous as the countries that people are fleeing from. So that's an absurd requirement. And it never in the history of our asylum system has that been the case. So, yeah, Biden didn't just embrace Trump's, asylum restrictions. He even went a step further.
And it's basically President Biden is saying, unless you're rich enough to fly directly to the United States and seek asylum, you can't seek asylum.
Oh, wow. Well, before asking another question from you, Paula, I just want to mention to folks that if there are any questions that you have with respect to Title 42 or from our speakers, you can please post your questions in the chat box. So, Paula, my other question from you is that what can people do to express welcome in their communities?
So I've done a lot of videos of people doing welcoming work in their communities and advocacy. And really, hands down, everybody says the simplest things. I interviewed Luis last week, and he said, somebody introduced to him the Metro app when he was in New York. When he first got there, they were like, use this app to learn how to ride the trains. And he still uses it to this day. And, he made a point to say sometimes small details seem small, but they're huge. And that's really the truth. People are coming into communities completely new, and they don't know a lot about our culture. They don't know about, the way our society works, the public transportation. They don't know, that you need quarters to do laundry. There's a bunch of stuff. So just giving someone information, pointing them in the right direction. It's not, you don't need to take money out of your own pocket to give to someone else. There's this misconception of it's going to take out of my pie to give to somebody else. That's not the case. There's resources out there for people seeking asylum. If you help guide them to those resources, that will make a difference. But also, if you want to give money and if you want to volunteer your time, you can do that too.
Exactly. I still remember the person who guided me to navigate the public transportation system in the United States, and I will always be thankful to him. Paula or Bilal, there is a question in the chat box from someone asking that how many Afghans have you met in Mexico so far?
Thank you, Ginger, for the question. So we've just been in Mexico for 1 day now, and the shelters that we visited three.
Yeah,
Four,
we've been to 3 or 4 shelters so far
three or
today.
four shelters so far today. And they serve predominantly Haitians and Central Americans. We haven't come across Afghans yet, but I will say that last week when we were at RCUSA Advocacy Days, I spoke to someone um, from an organization that is tracking the numbers of Afghans in Mexico, and he said that there was around an estimate of 5,000. And so we'll see that usually what happens is people will group themselves according to their nationality.
There's safety in numbers.
Right, right. So that maybe we just haven't gone to those shelters or those communities yet.
Or they haven't made their way this far up north yet either.
Mm-hmm. Right. But we know that there is a pathway from Brazil up north for Afghans, and so we do expect to see those numbers increase.
Thank you very much, Bilal and Paula. I would go and ask Luis to share a little bit about his experience and how it was like for him to seek refugee in the United States.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you this opportunity this time. I would like to share a little about my story. I want to say that I used to be a prosecutor, an anti-corruption prosecutor in my country, and that's the reason that I am a refugee right now, living in New York State. And the reason that I have applied for this kind of status is because I prosecuted a lot of powerful people in my country, and also the cases that I used to oversee were of a really high impact in my country and also in this country because the FBI was investigating one person of those cases as well, and they captured this person here in the United States. Now, that was the reason that my life was definitely in danger, and I was facing a real risk in my country. The problem is that I had the opportunity to face or to see further and to determine that my life was in danger. And also, of course, I had this opportunity because all the situation that I was living allowed me to determine that. But the problem is that this kind of status takes a lot of time to get it, because all the process took me like 1 year, and also I had to finish this process in another country because I was moved to Costa Rica because I wasn't able to continue the process in my country because the risk was really high. So the problem is that sometimes a lot of people don't have the opportunity to be moved to another country. And also, a lot of people don't have the opportunity to measure or to see the risk that they are facing in a specific moment. And that's the problem when you are applying to get a refugee status. It's something good because you can continue living in your own country, but this is a problem as well. Because if you are in a real danger, if you are facing something really bad in your country, you cannot still living in your country. So that's the reason that we need to understand that the people try to escape from their home countries and they try to be in another country. But something that we need to understand is that if someone from Guatemala, I have to say I am from Guatemala, try to escape from this kind of situation, you cannot travel to Salvador, you cannot travel to Honduras because it's the same thing. unfortunately and sadly, those countries cannot offer security. They cannot offer like a good environment for these people if you are facing this kind of risk. So it's super important to continue having the asylum status, because in that way, if you are having a really hard situation in your country, you can try to escape from this situation. And if you have the opportunity to move to Mexico and travel, you the people who knows Mexico understand that they have the same kind of problem that Central America has. And also, you cannot, and that's the reason that you cannot just try to move to Mexico, because you are not going to be living in a safe place.
Mm.
Also, unfortunately, a problem that Latin America has is the corruption. And this is something common across the continent. So, and also, if someone who is super powerful from Guatemala usually has influence in Paraguay, and that's the problem. But I have to say that these kind of people doesn't, or this kind of person, if someone is super powerful in those countries, usually they don't have the same influence and the same impact here in the United States. And that's the reason that a lot of people travel to United States seeking peace and seeking a safe place. But what happens if they try to come here and they face that, or they realize that they cannot enter and they cannot even apply to get this kind of status? This would be a really bad and a sad note, a sad situation, because if they are trying to escape from someone, the question is, who can really measure the risk? That's the problem. I am not able to measure the risk of somebody else, because the person who was living the bad situation was the own person. I cannot measure and I cannot determine, oh, this person doesn't have a real risk in his or in her country. And that's the problem. And they cannot expect that the people have to apply in another country that cannot offer security. So this is the important thing. And I can tell you, for example, I had former colleagues from Guatemala that they were prosecutors as well, that they couldn't prevent these kind of risks, and they had to escape and leave Guatemala and travel to United States, and they are seeking asylum. And what would be the problem if they couldn't be able to apply for this status? If they stay at Guatemala, definitely they could be under arrest or they can be killed. So if we don't have this option and we cannot continue having the asylum and the opportunity to apply for the asylum, this would be something really sad. And these kind of decisions are against the human rights. And it's something really, really sad to have this situation. And another sad situation is that sometimes the government or the countries can face, they want to face or they want to masquerade some kind of decisions trying to convince the people that they are doing something good, but sometimes they are not doing something good. And they are saying, okay, we are not going to give asylum, but we can offer parole. What's the problem with parole? With parole, they cannot apply for another kind of status. They can never be a permanent resident, and that's a problem. And if the United States in 1 or 2 years after that they grant the parole status, decide that this person is not on risk, they can just take away this kind of status, and they can return this person. And that's the difference. And that's something that we need to understand very well, that if the government is saying, okay, we are going to give this kind of parole, is not the same. This kind of status doesn't offer the same benefits, doesn't offer the same kind of protection, because in that case, the government is the one who is going to measure the risk of each person.
Thank you, Luis. My other question would be, because you have such an amazing experience in working with, people who are seeking asylum. In your view, why it is important to protect asylum and people seeking, asylum here in the United States?
Of course, yes. I have been working with people who is seeking asylum for around 2.5 years. And I can tell you, first of all, they are really nice people. They are trying to just stay alive. They just want to survive, because I had and I have the opportunity to help this kind of people. I have listened a lot of cases, a lot of stories from them, and they have really, really sad stories. And that's the reason that when you listen these kind of stories, you realize that they are not here because they want to live here. A lot of people had a great life. They had good jobs, they had a house, they had cars, and they are living everything. And also they are living family, they are living a career, just because they want to continue living, not because they want to come here and try to get a good experience living in a different country. No, they are here because they want to stay alive. And that's something that I have learned from them, that this kind of attitude that they have, resilience that they have, and the courage that they always try to have to face all the hard situation that they can have here in this country, is amazing. I have learned a lot of them, and I really feel proud of these people and for this population, because they are trying to do their best in this country. And also, how, as I said, it's super important to keep the asylum, because if they want to replace the asylum by a parole, the parole cannot offer the same protection as an asylum, and as an asylee. You are the one who will express your situation, and if you grant the asylum, you will have the opportunity to stay here, to resettle your life again, and also you will be the one who can have the decision and you will this person will be the one who can measure the real risk in their home countries, because in that way they can apply for permanent residence, and after that they can be citizens. In that way they can still living here 10 years, and suddenly they can say, okay, now I can live again in my country, I can return to my country, and that's it. But it's the own person who will be measuring this kind of risk. And that's the thing and that's the reason that I think this is super important to continue having. And we have to express always the reasons that we want to apply for this kind of status, and to continue having this status. And also, this is an international law, and also it's a human right. Definitely it is.
Thank you, Luis. To all those folks that have put questions on the chat box, unfortunately, our two of our guest speakers had to sign off because of the limited internet connectivity and because of the place that they were. But what we can do, as my colleague Andres has wrote in the chat box, that we will get back to you with those questions and also the resources that are available for people that have crossed the border with respect to legal counseling and those activities. Louise, my last question to you would be, what is one thing that you want people to take away from this conversation?
Well, first of all, I want to, what I would like as a takeaway of this conversation is that the people can understand that if the if this kind of population, if this community is coming to this country, is because they have to come to this country. It's not because they want to come to this country.
Exactly.
Also, another takeaway would be that we are not we are we don't have to stereotype the people. We cannot say that because they are from Latin America they are criminals. They are good people, and they are trying to come to continue doing well things here. So this is another takeaway. And also, I always try to explain that we have to remember that if we have to understand the history and the influence that United States has across the continent. And we need to understand that some of the problem that Latin America has is also because there is an influence from the United States and something is happening here. So this is another takeaway that I would like to say.
Thank you, Luis. And there was a message from Paula that I want to state here, and she said that currently there has been a process to create processing centers in Guatemala, Colombia, and Panama. And this is, counter to the ideas of needing asylum. Uh, the problem is that you cannot stay in the country and wait for the case to be processed if your life is in danger. So, folks, maybe we will get back to you with more information from our colleagues, Paula and Bilal. But thank you very much for joining us. What I want to iterate is that we must continue to pressure our administration to provide immigrant inclusion on all levels. We must hold our lawmakers accountable and demand the collective prioritization of fundamental human rights of refugees and people seeking asylum and other protections. Let's tell our member of Congress today to pass pro-immigrant policies that support refugees and asylum seekers, that increases the number of refugees admitted to the United States each year, and that provide more resources for asylum seekers to access legal counsel and support. Together, we can create a more just and compassionate immigration system that upholds the human rights of all people. As we close out today, I would like to thank our viewers for joining us. Remember to stay tuned on the We Are All America website and our Facebook page for more details and future events. We also want to give a shout out to our partners, Welcome with Dignity and Refugee Congress, for joining us today. We encourage you to visit their websites and to learn more about the actions to come. Thank you very much, everyone.